Greetings. It is a joy to be with you in this virtual space. Our church community welcomes you whether you are new or a longtime member. We especially want to welcome those who are here with us for the very first time. If you would like to learn more about our community and its online offerings, please go to nsuc.org and sign up for our newsletter. There has never been a better time to get involved or to become a member of the North Shore Unitarian Church. We would love to get you connected, and we welcome you today. Let's now begin our worship with music.
Good morning and welcome to this day. I want to invite us to our time together with words from Sue Magin. From beyond the playful spring clouds, beyond the earth's thin blue line, from beyond the bright moon and meteor showers, we hear the call to look and listen carefully, to turn away from a world that buys and sells happiness, to fully experience the luring whisper of your heart's truth. Why not today? Why not now? We are here and together at home in this evolving place, home in this ever-changing breath and body, home in this dewy morning, even as it reaches toward a hot, high noon. We hear the call from far beyond and deep within, and we do not hear it alone. Let us come together.
And so we light our flame. This flame affirms the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment.
It was as if the little pond had appeared out of thin air. Of course, I knew better. Created by melting snow and spring rain, the little pond in Cahokia Woods was a special type of habitat called an ephemeral pond. Cut off from the river with its hungry fish, the pond, no bigger than a minivan and only a few inches deep, was a safe haven, a nursery of sorts for baby amphibians and salamanders. If you haven't heard it before, the word ephemeral means brief or temporary. Ephemeral things aren't supposed to last. Maybe you saved a bit of ephemera, a ticket stub from a special event, or a post-it note with a little message from a friend. The ticket stub and post-it note are designed to be used once and then recycled. That's it. Around the water's edge, I could see tadpoles, insects flitting about, and the evidence of larger animals. Were those raccoon tracks over there? Perhaps a raccoon had come here to drink, or maybe feed on the variety of life inside the water. Masses of jelly-like eggs were visible underneath the leaves of the arrowhead plant. In the midst of a pandemic, it was a joy to see so much life going on as it always had. Pandemic life came and went, and it was summer before I could return to the pond. What would I find when I returned? Even more frogs? Tiny blue spotted salamanders? When I arrived, what I found was a dark, damp spot in the middle of the forest. The pond had dried up and the plants surrounding it were mostly brown. The little oasis was gone. The pond, however, had done its job nobly. During its brief existence, it had nurtured and brought forth the formation of so many little things that slither and wriggle. Slithering and wriggling things that would in turn make more slithering and wriggling things. Things that would be meals for larger animals, which might in turn be meals for even larger animals. The ripple effects of the pond would continue to spread outward from this spot, long after the water had returned to the earth and sky. Perhaps the pond and the next generation of baby animals and insects would even appear at this location next spring. Maybe that post-it note or ticket stub you have reminds you of someone special or inspires you to become a better person. Sometimes it seems everything is ephemeral, but sometimes if you pay attention, the ripple effects make those ephemeral things eternal. So my friends, get outside, preferably with others, and celebrate life this week. Have a wonderful Earth Day.
North Shore Unitarian Church is a community that is grounded in love, guided by reason, committed to spiritual growth, and striving for justice. We accomplish this mission by the generous donations of our members and friends. And so I invite you to text your donation now. Please remember that in order to give, you must include NSUC, the designated fund, and the amount. my beloved companions, let us find one another in that space of prayer and meditation, where we connect to the very spirit of life itself, the holy that binds us to each other and to the world around us. Spirit of life, may we be held as we center truth. Much of the truth in our world is complex and challenging and painful. We see new anti-trans legislation. We see more murder of Black and brown people by law enforcement. We see mass shootings. We behold the continued devastation of our climate. Other intersecting injustices abound. Spirit, we hold sacred the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. May we have the courage not to look away from this truth. May the compassion that lives in our hearts be activated. May we be strengthened in our work for just policies. Let us find meaning in our responsibility and accountability to the interconnected web of all that is. Let us find hope. Hope in the growing awareness of injustice. Let us be hope as we work together to create safety, health, opportunity, freedom, and a sustainable future. May we support and sustain one another, embodying love and the beloved community that we hold in our collective vision. May it be so, and blessed be.
Our reading is a poem from Jane Kenyon called Let Evening Come. Let the light of late afternoon shine through the chinks in the barn, moving up the bales as the sun moves down. Let the cricket take up chafing as a woman takes up her needles and her yarn. Let evening come. Let dew collect on the hoe abandoned in long grass. Let the stars appear and the moon disclose her silver horn. Let the fox go back to its sandy den. Let the wind die down. Let the shed go back inside. Let evening come. To the bottle in the ditch, to the scoop in the oats, to the air in the lung, let evening come. Let it come as it will, and don't be afraid. God does not leave us comfortless, so let evening come.
Through the skies. glorious there like you to rise, there like you forever reign, forever they're like you forever oft angels through the skies, angels through the skies, far above yon azure plain, far above yon azure plain. Angels wafted through the skies, wafted through the skies, far above yon azure plain, far above yon azure
Zach Sobiek was 14 when he was diagnosed with osteosarcoma. It is a rare and extremely difficult form of cancer to treat. And it started with a bad day of running. He came home with pain in his hip. And when he went to the doctor's office, he was told that it was nothing. But the pain got progressively worse. And after several tests, it was revealed that the bone cancer had spread throughout his pelvis. Zach became known to the wider world when he wrote his song Clouds, which became a viral hit. And after he died in 2013, his mother wrote a memoir that took its title from a line of Zach's song. Her memoir is called Fly a Little Higher. The line reflects the Catholic faith of Zach and his family with its developed concept of heaven. Zach and his family took a lot of comfort in their idea of an afterlife and that he would end up with God in heaven. This week I read Fly a Little Higher, and in spite of the title, the theology does not focus overly much on heaven. Some recent books written by Christians do focus on that, so much so that the genre has been given the name of heaven tourism. Often these books are written by someone who has had a near-death experience, and upon waking, the person narrates his or her time in heaven during that near-death experience. Heaven is for real, and The Boy Who Came Back from Heaven both fit within this genre. Fly a Little Higher has a different theological emphasis, which focuses much more on divine purpose. An example comes at the beginning of the book. Here, Laura, Zach's mother, relates the time that Zach came home from his first day as a senior in high school. It was a painful day, and Zach tells his mother this: "My friends and I would be talking, and everything seemed fine. Then one of them brought up college, and all I could think about is how I would be dead." Zach and his mother spent time reflecting on the gravity and sadness of that. Not hiding from the sadness, he also talks about some of the things that give him hope about the coming year. And at the end of the exchange, Laura writes this: "We hammered out a plan for Zach that he could feel good about. And then I said a silent thank you to God for helping to guide me and give Zach the words that he needed to hear." This sense of God's presence is a constant theme in Laura's journey. She has a strong belief that God's hand can be found in many of the moments of Zach's illness. God is there when she needs to find the right words to comfort her son. And when Zach's music begins to touch the lives of thousands of people, she comes to believe that there is a larger divine purpose in Zach's short life, his illness, and his death. It is an idea that gives her family comfort and peace in the midst of an otherwise unbearable tragedy. My own theology is quite different from Laura's. Mine is much more humanistic. The idea that God has a future mapped out for me, or that God has planned for me to lose certain loved ones, that's not something that I find comforting. But there's also a very real sense in which it doesn't matter what I think or feel or believe about another's theology of death. And today I want to talk a little bit about why I think that's the case. When I was in divinity school, I had the privilege of being a chaplain one summer. It was at a large hospital complex in Boston. And during the summer, I would wind my ways through the long, sterile white corridors as machines beeped and buzzed and as nurses and doctors rushed past me. I had a different pace. I was just there to show up for anyone who needed to talk. All sorts of people took me up on the invitation. I would visit patients who came from Christian and Jewish backgrounds. I would visit atheists and Hindus and Muslims and Unitarian Universalists. I would visit an older woman with coiled white braids working her way through a stack of papers to put her affairs in order, and a young man with an acne-covered face reckoning with a life-altering diagnosis not unlike Zach Sobiek's, and a red-haired middle-aged woman wearing a blue and white checked hospital gown who had just given birth to a baby who would probably not live through the next shift. It was a privilege to sit with all of these people, and I learned a lot. And one of the convictions that I came to, one of the things that I learned, is that there is not a right or correct theology for people to have in order to help them get through difficulty. A good theology is rather one that offers some kind of roadmap or some sort of touch points through pain and heartache and grief. And that can look like a lot of different things. The most important question, I think, is, does this theology offer a story or an anchor or a touch point that someone can use in order to find his or her way through the uncertainty and pain? When night comes, as the poet Jane Kenyon puts it, do we have something that will companion us so that we are not left comfortless? That question, I think, needs to be the center point for evaluating any theology of death and dying. This is a pretty pragmatic position. It's basically saying whatever works is the true theology for that person. And as it turns out, there is an intellectual tradition that supports this very approach. It is called, who would have guessed, pragmatism. William James, in his famous work, The Varieties of Religious Experience, puts it this way: religious ideas should be measured by the effect that they have on human action. Time magazine's 1963 review of the book captures William James' sentiment well. It says of him that he was a man impatient with his fellow scholars and their endless hair-splitting matters that had no relation to life. A vibrant, generous person, William James hoped to show that religious emotions, even those defined as problematic or untrue by current scientific standards, were crucial to human life and crucial to human coping. For James, religious or theological ideas might be better thought of in the same way that one evaluates psychological states. Do they give courage to confront difficulty? Do they offer us comfort and resolve? Do they assist us in our relations with others? Rather than asking whether a theology of death is true, I've come to wonder more about how practical and helpful it is for the person who is grieving. A useful or good theology offers space for the full range of human emotions, especially the full range of emotions that accompany the experience of dying. The word holy is originally linked with wholeness. It is something that makes a situation whole. A theology of death that is capacious, that offers a person room and space to heal, is one that will affirm all of the emotions that accompany that loss and help to make the person's grief whole. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross famously pioneered the idea of stages of grief. These stages can be helpful for understanding the common reactions that we have to death and dying. They are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And a good theology of dying is able to hold all of these and say that, yes, this experience too is human and it is holy. If we take denial, anger, and depression, it might look something like this. Denial is human and it is holy. Denial is one of the states that many have judgments about. But as Kubler-Ross said, wisely, I think, denial is actually a self-protective measure. It offers us a shield when our hearts would otherwise shatter into a million pieces. One of the most compassionate stories about denial is the story of Kisagatami in the Buddhist tradition. When she went to the Buddha with the body of her dead son, the Buddha did not tell her to stop pretending that he can come back to life. She asked for the Buddha to restore her son to life, but he did not judge her. He let her have her denial and blessed her grieving process, knowing it will take time to move towards acceptance. Eventually she does, and her compassion is expanded to others who have experienced loss. Anger is human, and it is holy. This also is a hard one. Sometimes people experience it as a betrayal to feel anger as a part of their grief. Anger can come out in different ways. Sometimes it's anger towards the person who is dying. Sometimes it's anger towards God or the universe. And as I knew as a chaplain in the hospital, sometimes it's anger towards the chaplain. But I want to say all of that anger, too, is holy. In the Hebrew Scriptures, a great many passages express anger and outrage about loss. When his friends offer him false comforts after the death of his family, Job famously lashes out at them and says, "Your proverbs are proverbs of ashes." His anger makes him heroic in the story. It does not taint his character. Depression is human and it is holy. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says, "Blessed are those who weep." Here, Jesus is not saying those who weep just need to get over it, but rather he is saying that there is something worthy in the experience of sadness and heartbreak. It is okay to have that experience when one is confronted with death and dying. The worst thing that anyone can say to someone who is in the grieving process is, "It's already been 3 weeks or 3 months or 3 years." Why haven't you moved on? A good theology of dying affirms the space for sadness and heartbreak, however long it takes to hold those. In fact, I'm not sure if we ever do move fully into the final stage that Kubler-Ross mentions, the final stage of acceptance. What I have noticed both with my own experience of grieving and in being with others who are grieving is that one begins to hold both acceptance and the other emotions that accompany grief. At some point, we begin to reckon with the fact that this person is gone and perhaps begin to experience gratitude that they were a part of our lives for a time. This does not completely force out the sadness of loss, but it does offer us solace and hope. And perhaps, hopefully, that process is accompanied by a helpful theology that enables the person to move with those different experiences that characterize grief. Laura Sobiak eventually comes to see the great good that her son's music has in the lives of others, and that gratitude now accompanies the pain of loss. As she said in an interview, to travel that road with Zach, I just kind of regard it as a privilege at this point. On many days, she is still stricken with grief, and it's a sadness that she acknowledges may never go away. But I would say that there is a tenderness and a vibrancy in that. There is a humanness and a holiness there too. There is hope that a broken heart whose pieces have been scattered everywhere will continue to find new ways to hold on to the fullness of the love that she has for her son. And her faith has continued to be a deep well and a deep resource for her in that process. And that, more than any other question of truth or correctness, that should be the measure of what we call a good theology of death and dying. My spiritual companions, may our hearts be open to that truth, especially when we need it most. Amen. I love you, and blessed be.
At the last, tenderly, from the walls of the powerful fortress house, from the clasp of the knitted locks, from the keep of the well-closed doors, let me be wafted Let me glide noiselessly forth with the key of softness unlock the locks, with a whisper set up the doors. O soul, not impatient. Strong is your hold, O mortal flesh. Strong is your hold, O love.
If you found something of meaning here today, I would invite you to share the link with your family and friends. You can also join us for coffee and conversation. The Zoom link can be found in the YouTube chat and also in your newsletter. But first, by way of closing, I leave us today with some words from the poet Nancy Wood. My spiritual companions, hold on to what is good, even when that is a handful of earth. Hold on to what you believe, even when that is a tree that stands alone. Hold on to what you must do, even when that is a long, long way from here. Hold on to life and to love and to hope, even when it's easier letting those things go. And finally, hold on to each other's hands, even as we are apart from one another. Amen, and may it be so.